Okay, the story so far. The French have pretty much convinced the Allied command to withdraw. Instead of following the normal rules, we're going into let's make up our own game. And I'm adding a few little capabilities, mainly over here on the command chart for handling the withdrawal and being able to showcase that. This is because I have a peculiar interest in how armies disengage at various periods. And I think the system can show that fairly well. The only problem is there are certain aspects of the rigidity of this chart that aren't going to work with it. So I'm allowing myself to just sort of, like I said, fudge the rules and make up a few little things that allow me to do things like swap a cav unit into the front for an infantry unit that's capable of withdrawing, and that's what's kind of happening here. Athlone and Nassau are sort of switching places without a die roll or anything like that, because the general retreat has been called. Okay, I'm also allowing perhaps some bonuses to die rolls for certain types of transfers or commitments. We'll see as the case arises. In general, though, I think I'm sticking mainly to the system while I do that. It is kind of interesting. It's highlighting certain aspects that are present in the regular game, but bringing them into a greater clarity where I see some issues with the way the design is set up. Okay. Now, as a follow-up, someone commented on how I'm highlighting the issues of the different wings and how they're causing problems. The developer came back to say, look, when the actual rules that should have been published with the game are put online in an electronic version, they will better address some of the issues that I found. I can believe that, but within a certain kind of a level of abstraction. Personally, I actually think that the idea of shifting those boundaries more makes more sense, but it also brings up, additional things that I feel like some of the rigidity of the system are problematic. So for example, this huge wing here, it has a lot of frontage. Only being able to, the largest frontage in the game, by the way. If you only have small brigades, you can't cover the whole frontage, right? Well, pretty much if you do use anything but all your cav in the front line, you're not going to be able to create a solid front line here. And there's issues like that. This battery's about dead. So I'm going to cut it here. Okay, artillery fire. Did a little bit. Got a little bit of impact over here. These guns fired successfully. This one actually did too. I got 100% effectiveness. Not maximal, but I got hits with everything, which at this range, especially out there, is actually pretty impressive. But the chart, this was what, like 5 hexes out. It's still not bad at that range. I've got other guns limbering up here and here, and I had a limbered gun move into here, trying to pursue with artillery. That's obviously not going to work terribly well, but, there's kind of the, well, they may get stuck in some position in which I get, the Allied forces may get stuck in a position in which I get to fire. Life-wise, it's rainy and drizzly, and I'm up way too early. I don't know what happened. I only got a couple hours of sleep, and that's not good. This is a Thursday. Fridays are my dancing night, and I don't know. Things have been fucked up. Like yesterday, I woke up past 7 p.m. Today, I went to sleep a little earlier. Like it was definitely light out. I don't know how late it was. Like I don't know if it got to 7, but I woke up at like 9 a.m. or something. Obviously, I'm gonna have to go back to sleep, and I don't know what's going on. But I ate the remnants of my jar of peanut butter. I got more peanut butter. That was my breakfast, man. That and a slice of cheese, not at the same time. And now we'll go over and deal with these. I'm really I'm just sinking so much further, and I don't know. Like I started this week with the thought of, okay, if I can prove to myself that I can operate and be effective for a week, I can tell my buddy, yeah, it's okay if you come up, because I'll know I'll be able to get the house clean, and especially my past wife's room where he'd be staying. But I have no guarantees of that, I just but a lot of it is raid. And in raid, I spent the whole night playing for this stupid CVC thing, clan fight, and I spent a ton of resources on it, game resources. I don't pay money for it anymore. I didn't really before. But there's people who spend ridiculous amounts of money on it. Like $20,000 a year on this shit. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? But, if you consider the amount of time I put into it, it's worse than that in a way. But anyway. But yeah, I spent a ridiculous amount of resources, and we just got beat. I had a lot of stuff saved up for the very end, and dumped that in kind of a panic mode because I saw they were still playing and throwing points in, and they just threw so much more in. Yeah. Anyhow, it hurt, but whatever. All right, let's play with the command chart. So we had a couple of successes. I'm going to put this here because I think I'm about ready to pass out at this point. We had a couple of successes. The Danish cav is shifting over. Since it's not in reserve, it can't jump 2, I think, or more, or whatever, which I would have liked. I just want to get, I don't know, I want to get more oomph over in this area. I feel like things are weak there. And I attempted a bunch of, I tried to move these over, stuff like that. Although I'm not sure because they're already coming under fire, essentially, how much that's reasonable. On the French side, the only thing I did successfully, I tried to move this, not that cav, I tried to move this cav forward. And this guy still hasn't moved, hasn't made it all the way yet into the reserve for that wing. The only thing I succeeded with was this Duplay. If you remember, Brigade is stuck here. I'm trying to squeeze some cav in there too. My feeling being that, look, any kind of withdrawal, any kind of route, whatever, the pursuit should be mainly cavalry. So if I can get them up there, we'll see whether they're particularly more effective. I think they will be, because there's going to be a lot of, first of all, they're going to be fighting cav, which they're just better at. Cav in this performs what really amounts to a screening function, which is absolutely appropriate against the infantry when the infantry is trying to advance or whatever. So I got to get rid of that cav if I want to get to the infantry. So if there's defensive cav for a withdrawal, it kind of protects it, which is why I'm allowing some of the weird shit that I'm allowing and why these guys are up here and whatnot. But the other thing is that if you're facing the rear of like infantry units trying to withdraw, I'm going to get all kind of advantages on them. Plus the cav has the speed to be able to chase down the infantry, whereas infantry pursuing infantry, it doesn't really work terribly well. You end up not being able to hit them. You end up just chasing them, which again feels about right. And this is why I like to do things like a withdrawal, because I want to see, does the game handle it well? And so far, this game is handling it better than anything else I've seen. Too many games, like if I go to the old, TSS model down there, or the gamer stuff or whatever, if you turn around and run full speed with your infantry, the enemy just runs full speed behind you and gets all kind of rear shots on you. So they're like chasing you at full speed and firing full volleys continuously. There's no kind of, hey, can I run away faster, to just get out of here or something, which I feel this game aptly handles. Obviously, Cav is a different matter. Cav is going to be able to ride down the infantry in almost any period. As long as, up until when there isn't Cav anymore. But even in like World War I, Cav could be used to pursue a broken force. And so, it's appropriate. So what you end up with in those kind of games is this sort of fighting withdrawal the whole time. You can never really turn and just march away. And maybe that's not that bad when you go to the more modern periods where the armies are more organized and whatnot. But here, getting these brigades moving and whatnot, it took a little bit of effort. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like the other model doesn't handle it as well, and that this is actually doing pretty well with it. Anyhow, like I said, I'm very, very sleepy, and I have some stuff to do in Raid still. I'm shifting gear around, which is painful. Here we are. It's like Friday, 3 in the morning. I slept until 8 p.m. today. It's not that horrible. It was like maybe 9 hours of sleep. But I think I had a nap the day before or something. I don't know. It's so hard to tell. Anyway, it's an untenable situation if I'm going out tonight. Anyway, we're on the brigade activations. We'll start with the charges. I think the only people charging, although that could change with Cav trying to intervene, are French. So let's hit them. One of the things I like in this game, by far and away, and it comes over from the musket and pike, is I tried to get these guys out of charge into dress ranks. Easiest way to get them out. I fail. I got 2 units locked. Okay. Nothing I can do about them, and they're doing their job. I wouldn't have unlocked them. I would have just recovered this. But this unit is required to do something I totally do not want to do: march into the village and attack across the stream there. And that's, the kind of momentum and the kind of loss of control that I really think that this system and the musket and pike series both really, really highlight very well, as does 1066. It's something that I wish had made its way into the Men of Iron games. Was this concept of, like, in Men of Iron, and like 1066, that's a Berg design, but like this in Musket and Pike, it's a GMT publication. It's more of like, it's an activation selection game where, and you can argue this and Musket and Pike have some elements of that, although it's within the orders. But without an orders system on top of it, it allows you to like manipulate your units in ways that take away the concept of inertia, momentum, etc. And those brave men of Cadreau managed to get a 0 and just push, you know, and again, another thing I like, I'm over here on the -3 table, or column. It's funny, the 0 is not necessarily the worst die roll, but there's no die roll modifier, so it just kind of doesn't matter. In fact, 0 is quite often not the worst. DR is a less of a result than 1 DR. But the thing with 1 DR is it causes pain probably to both units. In this case, both units would have taken a casualty. But if they already both had a casualty, this would have simply routed and Cadreau would have gone forward. And it's just like, it's situational and whatnot. The fact that the 1 DR does damage to both sides, I think kind of makes the DR maybe a worse situation. I don't know. I'm not sure I really buy it. But again, there are no modifiers. It doesn't make a difference. You're just rolling a D10, you know, on the chart that you choose. I addressed this before. I don't know if I came up with the same answer that I've come up. I think I did. Surbeck went next. He continues his charge. Flip him over. Close to routing, or likely to route. I did some shifting, and we've got attacks here and here. This guy's not attacking. He had to walk too far, if I recall correctly. He came from, I don't know where he came from. I think he had to walk too far, so he's not attacking that cav. I would have to look up some rules. No. He had to turn and advance. I'm missing what I intended to do here, but you know, it's so unwieldy to me. So no, I had to go too far because I had to turn and advance. If you look here, I'm allowed to attack here, directly behind me, and then a hex away. These 4s don't count for infantry. So he's not actually launching an attack, and he didn't have to do what he did. I would have loved to make this attack, but yeah. Which would not, well, no, it would have to be against the cav because this guy's attack miss. But I hit this, this Nassau unit, and that's an artillery hit underneath it. Now, it has two places it got to retreat. It has two places to retreat to, here and here. It's facing the wrong way. And the unable to retreat says they retreat into one of the two opposite the enemy while rotating their original facing. Okay, I knew that. They may not retreat into an impassable hex nor violate stacking. I think I violate stacking if I retain my facing. So I've got to stay there, which means I go to the ignore retreat table, and I think I'm a 3. And I'm perfectly fine. I just eat it. But again, you know, there's that level of like trying to put things together. It's not necessarily obvious. You have to draw from many areas of the rules to get to understanding what a particular situation that normally is pretty clearly delineated in most games. Reynaud halts their advances, drops into dress ranks, recovers some losses. That's going to give Hanover a chance to slip away, probably. For good or ill. But I didn't want to slam into them with, you know, damaged units is really what it came down to. Ribe and Thiange are the next two. And then we're down to movement orders, starting with the Allies. This is basically just a pushing match. We made our way across the stream here, and this firefight here didn't mean anything, got shoved back here attacking, but pushed the cav forward here, moving into an artillery hex. That does not even disorder the cav, if I recall correctly. The infantry versus cav is fucked up, if you recall. No infantry volley. If the cav is unable to retreat, it is placed and disordered. Yeah, so there's one step that's missing, which is that the cav has to retreat anyway, but doesn't get disordered. Like it takes a disorder from the initial volley when that happens, just to give the firepower effect. And that'll put me over with the allies. It's kind of cold here. There's, I had an owl, and I think I still can kind of almost hear him, but he could open the window. Yeah, it's raining. He's probably complaining about wet feathers. Here we're in a place where I'm definitely violating the rules. I put the Spanish cav into address ranks successfully, which is damn hard to do. It's very hard. Even, like, I feel like, and I think I've said this, I feel like I got to give a bonus. I didn't give one. They made it anyway, but I'm crossing the boundary. I wouldn't legitimately have to leave or whatever. This is I'm making shit up for with a withdrawal that's allowing me to do that. Normally you wouldn't be allowed to do that. With the kind of flexible boundaries that I foresee, this would not be a problem. I would simply say, look, the boundaries moved to here. Fuck you. You know? I feel like the size number is sufficient to limit the size of the army. The terrain has nothing to do with where wings actually should be deployed, because maybe the battle's happening 50 yards to the left, you know? Maybe the whole battle shifts, right? Oh, not 50, but say 500 yards to the left, 2 hexes. If that's the case, well, the frontage increases too much on one of the areas and decreases too much on the other. The terrain is not what limited the army to, the operation in sectors, fronts, whatever, command sections, however you want to put it, was not limited by the actuality of the terrain. The terrain can dictate it to the extent that, like, hey, there's a stream. I don't want to cross the stream very much. But they're not even very good, like, about that. They're like, well, the eventual goal is this village, so yeah, let's make that part of the front. Yeah, let the player have some flexibility there, which is why I'm going to go with removable markers, I think, when I get to Blenheim. But again, for this game, I wasn't doing that, and I feel like these have to be able to withdraw. That's part of my withdrawal rules, though. Technically cheating, but I feel like I'm doing a little bit of cheating here. I've got Asphalt, and I moved him up to protect the flank over here. He's in the support line still. I don't even think I tried to get him up. I don't know. I keep trying to get this guy forward because Asphalt's not enough to deal with Tilly. Not anymore. And I kind of feel like I'm in the front lines right now, when I'm really kind of not. But maybe that kind of fuzziness is expected. It's certainly allowable by the rules. It just feels wrong. Very similar fashion, Bellegarde. I feel like I'm cheating with him too, but support is only one line thick. He feels like I've cheated him to the front from the reserve. That's where he is right now. Of course, if there's retreats or anything, I'm going to have to do something to rectify the situation, something that doesn't feel realistic to me. And that's why it starts feeling wrong, right? Okay, look, this guy's in the support, fine, but if these guys retreat, he's got to fall back. Okay, he's covering them. But if these guys fall back, again, these guys feel like they're in the front. They're just... They're all the way back in the reserve, but only 2 hexes back from the front, and that feels really weird. Now, within the rules, the Danes are transferring to be on the other side of the opt-in cav. I want the big opt-in cav ready to move into this position if it has to. They're in a position that would normally be illegal because they're overlapped, but it's okay because they have like this brigade transfer in process. They haven't made it the whole way yet. Had I decided that a brigade can leave a unit back there fighting, this time I kind of decided not. I got a firefight here. All these units could be much further away. I think I want to. I think I want to do something more like this that saves them. Oh no, this was the problem. 1, 2, 3, 4 to here. He could not go. But yeah, I'm going to abandon those units. I'm going to say that I'm allowed to do this and run away with most of the brigade and let them leave some of them behind. Again, normally I wouldn't be allowed to do that, no question. But under the withdrawal rules, yeah, I think I should be allowed to. Almost feels like getting back to this Brigade guy, who's the next guy in line, you know, that I'm kind of thinking about. Yeah, I'm probably going to just pass down here. But he's in a situation where he cannot comply. I almost feel like he should be forced back from the front to the support line at this point in order to comply. Like, I feel like in situations in which you're unable to achieve a certain kind of compliance, especially since it's been a couple of turns, whatever, I'm leaving it as it is. Again, I have no idea how you would write the kind of rules that would, you know, make this kind of thing possible. Likewise with this guy. They're under orders to try to get to the front from their command, but they're not able to do it. And it's just that simple. And I shouldn't get rid of their orders because of that, I guess. Although it really doesn't feel, it feels like they might get stalled by this situation in the sense that, like, even if the front opens up, they may no longer be capable of quickly moving up there, right? That's kind of my concern, is that it's kind of like using contingent orders in CWB NBS series. And I've never really had to do that in CWB at all. But in the Napoleonic Brigade series for Austerlitz, I was able to use contingent orders to great effect and basically manage what was a massive attack of a sort that the Allies were not able to manage against Napoleon. And pretty much violate everything about the command. So here, I think the problem there has more to do with the Austerlitz scenario. That specific scenario should just say, you can't do this. You just can't do it. Like, you have to rely on timing problems across the board. Because those kind of combined actions to start a scenario are perfectly fine in general. It's just at Austerlitz, it shouldn't be allowed. Like, I felt like I was violating the spirit of Austerlitz when I did it. I always do better with the Allies than I think I should there, though. I think it's very hard to have anything close to the French success. All right, where the hell am I? I'm on the French, and I'm probably going to trigger some guy in the back. I did the Dupleix cavalry back here. Move them as forward as I kind of can. Not quite. I'm leaving some channels. I think that's okay. They also can't come into compliance, but the difference between them and Brigade is they're keeping their committed marker, right? They're not cut off in the midst while already performing the orders. Brigade was at the front fighting his way, and then he got surpassed. Right? Accidentally made a I accidentally cheated. I had a dress ranks marker here that I didn't see, and I activated Hanover and marked them. I made a check. They would have made it. I'm saying screw it because there's nobody who can do anything. Conceivably, Salas could have charged them or something. Fuck it. I'm just letting it go. But again, the markers in front make it hard for me to tell what the orders are. The markers on top, even exposing things, make it hard for me to see the F. I don't know what the answer is. I feel like some counter mix limitations here are what caused the issue. I should have a single counter that's both the current orders and the state of those orders. But that would impose a lot of extra counters on the game. Am I ever going to get familiar with being able to do it correctly? I honestly just don't know. Ramsey is under March orders. I'm trying to get him out of here, but that means wiggling my ass at these rebate units, which are in charge, if I recall correctly. If they're not, I don't care. Yeah, they're in charge. So I can get hit in the butt, which sucks. I didn't really have any option. I mean, I could be positioned, something like this, because I was 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I could position it like this. These guys could turn to join them. Why don't we do that? We'll do this instead. I think these guys will be in the bottom, in the rear. Pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they could do that. Because I really don't like exposing myself in that way to an attack. But it does show some of the difficulty of getting out. Like, I've made it sound like it's really easy, and these guys just marched away. Sure. Here, I'm still in close enough contact that things can happen. And I didn't have an easy way to just about face and march away the way Hanover does. Can things happen here? No, these guys are too far away for a charge. I was able to get out of there pretty easily. I think there was just a little bit more distance, a little bit less chaos than there is up here. For the final Allied unit, these guys just are holding in march. May not be wise, I don't know. I feel like holding the water line is not a bad idea. What about this? They could just scare us off. That's all they can do. Let's do that. But I didn't really want to be in a charge because then I have to attack the cav up here. And in March, I'm not able to attack the infantry, no matter what. Which is kind of cool. I could attack cav. I guess a carousel or something like that. I don't know why I can't do it here. Call? I don't remember how it's pronounced. Did I ever know? Probably not. Avalon was the last unit, and he failed to get into a charge that he wanted to get into because he could hit this and this, but not this because his flanks are secured. And I feel like that would help take some of the pressure off of the Nassau, not Namur. Namur's in Belgium, so being Dutch makes sense. But Nassau is the historic German house that the Prince of Orange, the stadholders. Worse than that, Orange is in France. So the house is named after territory they hold in France. Their major troops are Nassau, that they actually control, which is in Germany, and their highest position is in the Netherlands as stadtholder. Well, other than King of England. So yeah, pretty crazy. One King of England. Okay. But yeah, I was unable to get him into the charge that I wanted to. That means he stays in march. I don't feel like he can back up the way I kind of like to, because this is Nassau here, and they're in a, hey, I've replaced you in the line. So I just don't feel like he has the right to. That means we're at the point where I get to do all the French units that are in March. I'm going to look to the front. Brigade probably maybe wants to move forward a little bit. I don't know. You know, that kind of clutters my mess, but he is in orders to go frontward, so I feel like he kind of has to. But most of the rest of them, I think, are just going to sit there and twiddle their thumbs. They really don't have anything to do. And here I've got a problem. And now this is where things get weird, because this may actually be more applicable as to why you can't be too flexible with, I don't know. No, the size of the front is determined by the number of units you're allowed to have in the front of that wing. That actually still would work. Okay, so what I did is I moved the Montreval units forward. Now, is this even allowable? I'm not sure, right? What is my front? Because I've pushed through here so far that it almost feels like the front curves like this. And again, there needs to be some kind of specific rules for this. I'm hoping that this is present. I don't know. I'm assured that it is, but I really kind of don't believe it, because I have trouble seeing how you could write these rules again. But I've got a distance here. I'm 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes from the front here. These guys are right on the front, 1 and 2 hexes, maybe 3. So at 4 hexes, I am further back than this worst unit here. And you can make the same argument here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I could move a hex forward. Let's take that as our limitation, the number of hexes. I can move a hex forward with this command. And likewise, this command can move forward a little bit, but it's just feeling wrong when I trace the line, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm in line with the units that are in the front, and I'm a support line. And honestly here, 1, 2, 3, I'm actually closer to this, or I'm as close to this unit as this is already. Does that put me in violation? No, because I'm very clearly behind this unit in every sense of the word, right? Just because the distance from this unit to this unit is the same as from this unit to this unit doesn't mean you can kind of see what I mean. I'm making an exception with these guys where I'm counting hexes in order to allow them to push up so that they are on the line. But these guys are very clearly behind the line, so I don't have to count hexes. And, you know, trying to word all that into something that's a comprehensible rule is just like, wow, I don't know. I almost feel like you got to make up your rules as you play this game. And I think that's going to be the case even after any kind of fixing of the rules that comes out in the living rules. I just don't think that it's possible to write the rules they want to write here in anything like a reasonable fashion. Maybe some kind of really, really complex, you know, book twice the size of what the rules currently are would actually be able to do it. It would be impenetrably annoying to read, though. And I kind of feel like just an addendum that's like, hey, use some common sense. Things don't quite work. I don't expect to have to do that with GMT games. I've gotten very used to GMT trying to nail everything down. If you know me, you know I don't mind having to make up rules. The only reason I'm making such a big deal out of it, honestly, rather than just giving into it and saying, screw it, I'm enjoying myself, is the fact that it is GMT, and I think players are very used to GMT being, I'm not going to say good, because I honestly don't think it's as good necessarily. Like the games I like the most tend to have a certain ambiguity and flexibility built into them. I'm going to put the dice here. We're on the dress ranks stage. Why don't I put the dice, I don't know, here. I'll see if I can figure that out. But yeah, we're on the ally. Hey, is this double-sided? It is. Interesting. So for the fact of this one phase, I could indicate whose phase it is. By that, I haven't really bothered with it. Are others double-sided for some reason? I mean, that is, but it's the same. AM, PM. Makes sense. It makes sense. All right. So that's actually pretty cool. Because I have done enough that I'm like, again, fatigued by the game, which is cool. My attempts to break a habit I've gotten into, at least this week, of falling asleep for a couple hours. I don't know. After dawn, whatever. I don't know how late it is. And then waking up in the morning. It's like 9 now. And not being able to fall back asleep. Well, today when it's more important than food, of course, for me, which is dancing day, I suffer the same problem. Anyway, let's get some action in. We'll probably finish this turn. And maybe not oversleep. I have Dellencourt. It was supposed to be doing the dress ranks. I see Dellencourt not flipped and in normal movement action. Let me take his turn first. I don't know if I missed something. That's kind of what I want, to be honest. Do I want to launch more attacks with his force or not? I just feel like he's rather beat up. They're sounding the retreat. Let me just flip that over. I'm not sure if I... See, this is Roche-Julian. I know that attacked, that attacked. There isn't a lot of Dellencourt left. I think I'll just leave his units there. And what that means is Earl here, who I was going to do, is going to try to leave dress ranks, right? No, he needs to stay in dress ranks so that that unit can back up. We don't really want to give up ground. We don't really want to give up the defensive line, but in order to leave this, we have to. And if that's the case, I want to withdraw 3 hexes. Do we want to... I'm going to violate... I think. See this? The line goes through here, but barely. But I'm going to violate the frontage here because the Nassau unit needs to about face and get the hell out of there. Here again, orders I think trump integrity to some extent. In this case, the guards unit switched into charge, keeping these guys linked, but I'm going to smack them in the flank here. I'm just trying to destroy guards versus guards. But these guards units are my problem, and I think they have to run up and try to scare the cav away. Well, one of them does. Let's look again at how this is worded. The peculiarities of the charge order. Where is it? Units under a charge order with no enemy units within charge priority change facing 1 vertex, and if an enemy is within charge priority hex. See, this is the thing. I think once you do this, that changes the charge priority, and then you're still allowed to move 2 hexes, which is different from how I read it before, or read the picture. You give me pictures and I get lazy, and I think I misapply things in this case. I'm looking for the thing. They must attack. Here we go. If units are not adjacent when the brigade is activated, these isolated units must move to become adjacent and are treated as if they're in a march. But these units were adjacent to one another, so I believe they maintain their own adjacency. I'm not going to run any further because I don't have to charge that much further out. Now this is still going to cause Brigade problems. This thing is going to just fall back. It's not even disordered. That's fine. But we got an attack here. And here I've got a 3. Some of this is probably breached. It doesn't really make much difference. I've got a 3. Let's put this there because it's between them. To 3, it's at even. Both have, okay, this guy has 2 flanks covered, one this way and one by the unit under him. So, and this guy has 1 flank covered, so I'm at +1. I get another +1 for hitting him in the flank, and we're rolling on the +2 table then. I think I got it right. Never absolutely sure. And I get a big bad 9, which gives me an attack or retreat. We're flung back, leaving what was my flank still there. And this firefight is still there among those 3. Too much detail, man. It really is. I shouldn't be giving that. So that was the guards. They moved into charge there. And now we go back and look for a British underdress ranks. We did this. We got the Van Heusens or whatever. Van Hayden. We're going to have to maintain dress ranks and fall back another hex. Am I facing anything under dress? Not really, so I'll do them next. Into another oops, which I thought was maybe a counter issue. Van Hayden pulled back to here. French Salis kept going in dress ranks. They were unable to get into charge. Had they been in charge, this unit was back here. He would have to turn and hit this unit as well, but instead we're able to pursue in the dress ranks. We could have gone to march and tried to chase the Hanoverians more effectively, but I felt like hitting this unit was of some value, and the rest of the command could have chased the Hanoverians as long as they kept connected. But when we got over to the Nassau G, I guess guards, they managed to get into march, did an about face, they're getting away, again revealing their rears to the French infantry, but there's only one, and I've got Cav to protect me to some extent. Maybe something good will happen, I don't know. But what I found under the Nassau Guard was a Nassau unit. It looks too similar. Now, I immediately thought, wait a minute, did I fuck up? You know, is it a counter fuck up? It's not. It's mine. So that should actually be under there. I don't know. That would have affected a possible check, but whatever. And I think that's the last unit to be fired off. It's hard to tell because I don't flip everything over. Yeah, you could say you're being lazy, man. But I think that's all the dress ranks units. You know, that I find this thing and I'm like, oh, oops. So that'll get me to routed unit movement. I don't see anything that routed this turn. And that'll just mean it's time to clean up. Well, I'm doing the big unflip. And this is something I noticed while I was playing Central Front Series, honestly. In games that require you to flip counters back and forth a lot, there's two ways you can flip a counter. One is like this. And you can see that doesn't work well with these counters, right? The other is like this. Now, it looks like it's the same amount of effort, but it's really not. Kind of no matter what you do, it puts a lot of stress on the fingers to flip a unit sideways rather than front to back. Which means that in games, at least for me, but I think for everyone, in games that you're going to have to be flipping and unflipping counters all over the place, they should be printed reverse to themselves. But not to the extent that it causes counter fuck-ups, right? Not that that's avoided in this game. But yeah, it's just much easier. So I don't know if you could see what I did there. In order to do this one-handed, I was able to before do it like this. That's in an easy situation. But here I've got counters, so I got to pick it up, flip it over like this. Whereas with these, I just do that if it was in the other direction. So I know it's a really minor thing, but it adds maybe 50% effort and like adds pain to to my tendons and whatever that is absolutely not there at all with the front to back flip. Weird little things that I don't think many people are going to give. And that puts us to the artillery. Again, there's nothing different on those sides. To the beginning of the 11:20 turn. And what do we got? Well, the Allies are beginning to disengage. It's not absolutely clean. It's working out relatively well, though. And I'm always impressed the degree to which a system can emulate the withdrawal or even a rout within the game's normal mechanisms. And I think this is largely doing it. The only place where I've got issues is with the command chart, and that the army has to disavow itself of some of its rigid restrictions as to how units operate, because the situation is just different from what is portrayed by the game itself during a withdrawal. And I think my little modifications are making it work. That's all I'm doing for today. Came up here, spent 20 minutes, a half hour, probably going to go down, play a little bit more Raid, not much, and then get back to sleep. All right, so here we are. It's Friday, it's about 4 p.m., 4:15. Gonna get a little bit of play, and I actually set my alarm so I would wake up in time. And I don't want to set the minute. 5 seemed a little late. It turns out I probably should have gotten up at 5. I don't know. But I hate the rush when I do. But I don't have enough. I don't need to do anything for Raid. Is basically what it comes down to. I do need to figure out a pair of pants I can wear, which has gotten harder and harder. A lot of my clothes is just disintegrating on me. I've got all my guns limbered at this point. This one actually had a shot available to it. This one moved to get here, so don't count that. But these guys, actually I had a shot here. Maybe I don't want to do that. Reduce his movement a little bit. So that's range 3. 7 is going to be a normal hit. Yeah, I didn't see I had a shot at that guy. But these other ones, like this one, would have to shoot over 2 units to get there. I've already been yelled at once for perhaps doing that, so I don't want to do that again. This one actually had a shot, but at range 6. I'm like, if I can drag him up a little closer and get a decent shot in, he might make a difference. At range 6, he's probably not going to make a difference hitting Cav. Cav is more affected by it, though. Right? Yeah, 2 movement point difference instead of 1. But still, I'm not really worried. Like, it's not going to do anything to that Cav when it comes down to it. I'm not hitting that Cav there. It's probably either charging or falling back. Got an interesting successful orders situation. Oh, this is probably illegal. In which case, I can't do it, can I? I bet you I have to be in March to do a, let's see, relief in place. I remember there were limits to this. May not be under charge, oh well. And cannot have units next to it. I wanted to do a relief in place for this infantry unit and pull it back and bring the Cav up because it can pursue more effectively, but I don't believe I can do that. Again, it feels fuzzy because this only allows 3 brigades. There's just too much front here running across. Now here, and you can make the argument, okay, well, I got the boundary line here, yeah, but then there's too much front here, right? Because this runs across what's actually a pretty wide and open space. It feels like I probably need to open these up a little bit more for the pursuit, but I'm not willing to do that. I'm willing to play around with the withdrawal itself. I'm not really willing to do too much to fuck around with the pursuit. Basically, the size of the frontage between these 2 areas, once the pursuit starts, or once pushing through the lines begins, it extends, it gets greater. There's room for another brigade here. There's only 2 brigades allowed in the Neerwinden, which is this section, which makes perfect sense when it's all bottlenecked by the town. Makes a lot less sense when you start spreading it open. And there's 3 brigades allowed here, but this is truly such a large front to begin with, or such a large wing to begin with. And the thing is, kind of the direction that it's aiming in, it feels like the wing kind of goes in this direction, which you've got with the orange crossing the wing boundaries and everything. I really do feel like there's room for yet another brigade to move forward. But my sort of, I'm slowly flipping my way through without much effort, because people are just saying, well, I can't do anything, I can't do anything. That'll be covered by the withdrawal rules that I'm making up, or something like that. But the kind of funny thing is, it was the size of the wings that I wanted to be the limitation on my proposed, fix, which is to take the wing boundaries off the map and essentially use little clip ties or something to define the wings. And by the way, they wouldn't necessarily have to line up, right? Like, there's nothing that says this area under this commander has to align with an area under another commander. And they don't exactly always do so, but they come damn close under the basic rules of the game. The way the game is designed to be played is, it really is, look, whoever's here, this line, he's going to only be advancing into the area of his opposing commander. He's not going to be drifting at all, no matter what the circumstances are. So you're not going to see something like, let's just say, a flank collapses. You're not going to see a wheeling across and striking the rest of the force. Now, that would happen, right? The game tries to get rid of some of that by saying, hey, if you collapse a flank, because there's kind of two options of what would happen. Would you rotate and try to encircle or overlap the enemy? Or do you end up charging forward and pursuing the enemy? And they're both possibilities. And it's not necessarily, you know, in the hands of the overall commander which one would happen. Because it still had that kind of weaker control over the actual units. So, you know, the idea of, hey, a wing collapsed, it's over now, kind of leaves you in a limbo type situation. But it was certainly the case that sometimes you had forces not pursuing the enemy. I think that overly aggressive pursuit of broken forces was probably the exception rather than the rule. The rule would be trying to overlap the enemy and trying to get an outflank on them. And in the game, you lose the two, you lose one of the two edge flanks and you're fine. I mean, not really. But you're not going to have any real way of operating cross wing in the sort of way that would indicate that kind of outflank. Whereas when one of the center ones goes, yeah, it's just all over. You know, I'm not sure the army would rout, but the withdrawal would definitely have to happen, and it would probably be a somewhat, at least in some areas, somewhat less controlled than we're seeing. And what do you do in those circumstances? I don't know. What do you do being, what would I do to be able to play out the army breaking? Just like I'm playing out the army withdrawing instead of calling the game there. The only effects we have a couple of transfers that haven't been completed because he's blocked. But I'm throwing a commitment here, and now these are again on the same line and in violation. But it's because these guys can't get out of violation, but these guys could have. So they probably should have turned around and moved back, or maybe I moved them forward too much. I'm going to actually push them back a hex, because I think I moved them forward into that position. Because if anything, they're closer to the front. Well, they're about. So this front here is a little closer, but I don't want to play games with that. I feel like this is a single line, and yeah, there's a bulge here, but that's not even where I am. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to put in a good 20 minutes or so. Give myself something to eat, whatever. I guess. I'm not really hungry, but I don't know. Daylight savings, when it came into play, although I started playing Raid during daylight savings, has really kind of impacted my Raid play. Or my time that I go to the bar or whatever. I'm more serious about Raid now, like in the sense that I don't know if I felt like, I think I did. I think pretty early on I was playing it pretty heavily, but it's very, very hard for me not to use up my energy and not to start my day. Yeah, my Raid day starts at 5 p.m., you know, and not to start my Raid day, whatever, by getting a lot of stuff done. And unfortunately, I kind of have to leave home. Dancing, technically I don't have to be there till 9, and it only takes like an hour and 15 minutes or so to walk there. But I actually like to get there significantly earlier. I don't have to pay cover that way. Get to read some, get to down a beer while I'm there. I get to walk during daylight, stuff like that. So I generally tend to leave at like 6:30 or earlier, which gets me there before 8, which means I get to avoid cover. I've been kind of fudging the cover a little bit more recently, but you know, I don't like to count on that particularly. It is Sunday morning, and this kind of uncomfortable habit of falling asleep right around dawn. I mean, 6 a.m., whatever. Things were just beginning to get light. So not quite the same time as it on other days, but whatever. And then sleeping for 2-3 hours. Then getting up, being way tired. It continues. Worse than that, or better, I'm not sure, is that the bonds of reality are beginning to break. And you can just say, you know, it's your perception, your mind that's breaking. I'll accept that, but, you know, I have to live within my perceptions and what I see. So far, a couple of bad acts, one that could have been in a dream, one that wasn't, have been reversed. And I don't know. Okay. So, we're on the Brigade movement, and since I got the dice here, I'm assuming we're doing the charges. I have no allied units under charge, a small handful of French ones. Let's start fighting them. By the way, I've sorted out the counters for Blenheim already. At some point or another, I have to read the rules to whatever thing I'm going to do next. But at least I am ready to set up Blenheim and not put a break in between here, depending on how long this takes. Yeah. Just looking down the line, I come to the Cadrel unit, and I got a few issues to bring up here. First of all, this guy is out of command in terms of being with the Brigade. He's going to be thrown into movement orders instead of charge orders, if the charge remains. Question is, do I want it to remain? I have a damaged unit. I'm also violating all kinds of things, but I can at least get closer to not violating them. Now, again, there's a gap that's opened up here. I feel like the unit should be able to keep crossing the line and connect up and attack the Spaniards there, leave more room open for the Cav to be in this wing. But I'm trying to stick within what I understand the wing rules to be. So I think I would have to move into these two spaces. Honestly, like, if I had to, I would be allowed to charge. I'd be forced to charge into here if I had to. Same reason this guy is out where he is. But the question is, do I want to try to throw him into address ranks and get rid of this damage? And I think the answer to that is no. And the reason the answer is no is that I want to push units forward and have more and more waves attacking. And these guys are kind of in the way, so I'm okay with routing them. Without victory conditions beyond, hey, the French have already won, right? But if I was playing this normally, I would be in the same kind of position if, like, the Allies didn't decide to concede and withdraw. To see how that works out, I would still be in a position where I'd want to push these guys forward and get them wrecked, get them off the board, basically, so that I can send other waves of French units in, because I just have such a numerical superiority, and that it's really, really hard to get these guys out of the line without routing them. So, charge we will. I mean, here's the problem. if I charge into these two hexes, right, and I'm allowed to maintain my position by doing that, this guy can't get out easily. He can withdraw back or he can rotate. That's it. Whereas if I charge into these two hexes, I've got a linear contiguity, and that's not the word. I mean, that's the meaning that I want. Congruency? Yes. Continuity, congruency, whatever. Here, I do what I think is right. This is what it should look like, but the rules preclude that as far as I can tell. I think I have to do something like this as per the rules, or I can back up into here. I think this gets me as close to getting into this hex as the other, so I'll allow that. The problem is, these attacks, I'm hitting with two open wings, two open flanks, one on each unit. Whereas, had I done what I feel like was the natural thing to do, bringing the brigade together, right? Even if it means crossing the boundaries. And again, I don't know, you know, is there, like, there's a specific thing which allows this to try to get back into command. There's nothing that says these guys have to get me into command, and I see movement. I'm always afraid, oh, it's just a human with a dog. Okay. Humans are rarer than animals at this time of day. You know, I think this is what I must do, right? But again, it doesn't fit with my assumption of how the linear combat would actually work. These imaginary lines don't exist. The idea of bringing your brigade together does exist. You know? And there's the quick effect that we see. We managed to gain some ground there. Both attacks were at -1, but that's okay. Likewise, I'll keep this Roshigoyan in charge. Now, his attacks are more interesting. One's going to go into here. I don't know if I'm going to hit the firefight unit or hit the rear of this unit. I kind of like hitting the rear. This guy's got to go forward. Let me look at the chart. I think I'm allowed to move one hex and attack. Otherwise, I'm thrown into movement order, right? One hex and attack. Yeah. So this guy can attack and must. But this guy can attack and must. And I think he has to try to stay inside his line. This guy can attack and must. This guy is thrown into movement though, so he can go 1, 2, 3, 4, connecting my line up. Which again, I feel like has a really vital issue. The fact that the units were connected, had a supporting unit with them, is why this guy went and attacked this way, but the other guy went the other way, right? And had to. There was no choice. Trying to steal this breach though, which I probably can't move around with me. And we get some more pinning going on. This guy got repulsed actually by the rear of that, but we got some pinning here. Now, again, this shows something that feels wrong, right? I marched up into here. My best attacks were hitting the wings. I think the brigade would logically have stayed together and have to hit that center unit. I can't find, I'm unaware of anything in the rules that forces that. I can't remember anything like that. So, but again, I'm pointing out these things where I feel like the game isn't quite representing the kind of linear warfare that I expect to see. Because that's where I think the game, the game's focus and what's new about the game is that attempt to try to represent the peculiarities of this kind of warfare in a very, very rigid and restrictive way. And there's things I like about it, but I'm also seeing holes forming in what I'd expect to happen. And I'm probably not bright enough to fix all of these, right? Like, I could just do what I've done in other games and say, fuck it, I think that it should be like this, so I'll make it that way. And make lots of like individual decisions all over the place. And I'd be happier, right? I really would. But I don't feel like that's, like, to some extent there should be some kind of rigid rules that can be put into place that more accurately capture what I'm trying to express. Well, something was the case that I didn't think was the case. This unit, I could not have attacked with this. I didn't. But I had this set up. You know what fucked me up? There was a firefight between these two. For some reason, this Athlone Cav, I must have treated as an infantry before, and I feel like I'm treating it as one again now. I don't know why, but it was in a firefight position with this unit. I'm trying to figure out how that possibly, like, I don't know what happened. And then I blew into it, and I wouldn't be able to do that. So if this hit that, well, honestly, this would hit this and force this back. I wouldn't be doing this attack the way I was doing it. And if this hit this, if this hit this first, this would be destroyed. So I would end up here, I think. Do I advance? I don't remember. Like, if it was infantry, I advance. But it's so seldom. I think the infantry does not advance. Okay. So here's what happened. This unit, so I resolved this one first. This cavalry had nowhere to retreat to and will die. And then this cavalry retreated there. It's not disordered. First fires aren't gone, nothing like that. Am I allowed to? Yeah, I don't know. It's under charge, it's an open terrain. Yeah, okay. And that means Athlone has to check. And I look for him, and he's got a 9 at this point, so he can't possibly fail. And Serbeck could not get hurt attacking Cav. So I chased them away. And I'm trying to open up a place for El Brigade here, if I can get the guards going this way. Of course, they can't because, and in a way that's okay, because Salas is at least covering this part of the line. I just have too many troops in the 4 brigades. And the guards do all kind of suspect shit. With these 2 units charging forward into the Cav, this Cav could not retreat. This one did. And then this unit hit into here. This firefight's still in play. I'm getting breaches all over the place. Of course, I'm limited by countermix, which means I can't breach this line, but that's okay. They're already falling back. It largely doesn't matter here either, but it does improve my movement across these. This guy hit this in the flank, and of course he hits the top unit, not the bottom unit, who's perhaps actually guarding that flank, although maybe he's guarding this one, so whatever. And kind of actually, this unit hit him. That was on top. This was protecting the flank, so this guy ended up getting a 1 DR. It was his first fire, so he did a couple of hits to one. Like, they each took a hit off the actual casualties because the French didn't rout. Oh, where are we? We're on this side now, the infantry over there. And then I'm going to break because I'm fucking fatigued. All right, Rebe did address ranks. Frontage continued, and he's just scaring these Cav. Wait, this isn't Cav. Fucking hell. I really can't tell what the hell I'm doing. He scared a Cav over here, disordering it, but these I guess I have to attack. Huh, might have dressed ranks. Instead of launching those attacks, I dress ranks here. That recovers. That means this Cav didn't get hurt. And actually, you got to be careful with these vertex pointing things. He actually could have retreated rather than getting hurt. That's what I thought happened here. But again, I thought these were Cav. It's very hard. And I mean, look, you zoom in and it's clear that they're different there, but it's just not registering to me. I see a blob of men, a couple blobs of men. It doesn't make much difference to me. It's like, and the artillery looks the same as well. I don't know, is it just my inability to register that information? I doubt I'm alone in it. I really do. To me, it's a poor graphics choice. I understand the reasoning for it, I guess, although honestly, looking at it from here, I barely see any difference. And it's one of the problems when you start getting to the really, really tiny minis. I think you can still tell what the fuck's going on with 6mm, but if you get below that, it's like, yeah, it starts to just look like a blur. There's like just stuff there. It's Monday morning, rainy as shit, and so tomorrow's supposed to be too. Still no food, but Wednesday should be a pretty day. Maybe I'll get some then. I mean, I'm eating. It's just not the stuff I want to eat. Although it's getting kind of scary, like to the point where if I don't go shopping for real on Wednesday, I've got to at least like run down to the nearby store. I'm almost out of eggs. Although I have oatmeal and spaghetti and some other things. But also, my nap switched from like, I don't know, happening somewhere around 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, to instead happening at like, I don't know, maybe 1 or something. And I thought that meant I would get to sleep earlier. And I've tried twice now to get back to sleep after that. And I just haven't been able to. And I'm dead fucking tired. But I decided to have breakfast, make some coffee, and fuck it. Anyway, on with the game. I mean, part of the problem is, of course, Raid, where I ended up... I didn't have a lot of energy that I had to spend or anything to play the game, but if something came up where there's a lot of reason for me to like deal with my gear and play around with that, and you increase it, you improve it and whatnot, and sell it off, and you're just dumping stuff left and right and trying to figure out what the hell to do. All right. Anyway, we did the French charges. That means we're on the first move order by the Allies. I feel like I'm mainly pointing out messes more than anything else. That and discussing my life. What did we do? Tilly reorganized his force with address ranks. Let's see. The Alencourt marched forward. Hey, I've been it's weird. I've been treating these as breastworks for combat, but I think as hasty breastworks for movement, for the most part for the game, because I've been kind of crossing them, and I don't know if I've been charging 1 or 2 movement points to cross them for infantry, but it's supposed to require their entire movement to cross the breastworks where they're not breached. So I didn't get a charge here, so I set myself up so that I can put a couple of breach markers down there and make it easier to move through. And that put me to the Nassau G, which I assume is Guard, who turned and are marching away in good order, everything going well for them. More or less, really. Now that gets me to El Brigade, and now I am really confused what to do. So here's the thing. The guards have ended up divided. I think El Brigade can march this way. The problem, of course, is can they engage, can they cross the boundary and whatnot? I don't fucking know. It's gotten to be such a mess. But this feels like it would create the line. Now, this is going to create a mess for the guards. They're going to have to try to figure out something to get back together. But they actually don't have to, as long as they keep themselves in 2 little mini brigades or whatever. As far as I can tell from the rolls. I have no idea. So I move El Brigade here. Now, the Earl Brigade has fallen back, and then Duplessis, who is still trying to commit themselves to the front, can try to squeeze across and get in here. I don't know what's happening. This is just turning into a mess that is not operating here, and it's not just because of the pursuit. It's mainly because I've created a bulge, right? Is that bulge inimical to linear warfare? Not really, from my understanding. My understanding is that the lines don't have to maintain. Basically, the problem is I have so many units in this front, or in this wing, that I can get everybody up there, more or less, right? The wing isn't all that big as a whole, but it allows 4 units, which allows for this kind of bulge to be created. But you probably shouldn't have the guards divided in 2 and whatnot. But I can't find anything that restricts them. Now, maybe it's part of the missing roll. There's only so much I can blame on the missing roll, though. Right? And we're at the point where the French are mainly just passing, but the Allied infantry, you can see, they're making their way out. The Earl is still up here. The second guards are stuck in a firefight they can't get out of. Hanoverian's moving up here. Ramsey moving away. These guys have a bit of a problem in terms of getting out of there. They're in dress ranks right now. If they keep up, they can kind of back away. But other than that, they're going to, what they want to do is turn around and run. Once most of the infantry are disengaged, I feel like the Spaniards are also locked in under dress ranks, but they can back away with their dress ranks. I got to do something about Opton to get them, the cav here, to get them out of the way so that the Spaniards can back out of there. And as the Allied units continue their sort of semi-orderly withdrawal, really, I'm kind of amazed with how easily most of these units are having in terms of disengaging. The only real problem being, hey, I'm stuck in a firefight I can't get out of. These guys are probably going to surrender. We have one last, I think, at least for this turn, but probably for the game because I'm probably going to hang it up after this. One last cav charge against these. Relatively, inconclusive. We disordered one unit. hit this. It couldn't retreat, but we ended up bouncing off of it anyway. They got the good ignore retreat rule. Nothing's dying. Nothing's routing off the board. Trying to see if there's anything else left to do. The Spanish cav here, I probably reposition it a hex behind or whatever. Give it some charge room if they want it. I don't really, like, conceivably I could try to charge these infantry and try to hit them and break them up a little bit. But I'm kind of worried about what might happen to my cav if I do that. I think we're at the end here. I really do. It looks to me like the Allied forces have mainly succeeded in their withdrawal. I could finish off the last couple little actions by taking another whole turn. I don't think it's worth it. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I feel like the rules as written and interpreted largely handle the withdrawal situation. I had to make up a couple new little things to make that work. I think this scenario is one that the Allies have absolutely no chance of winning. The French just have so much more manpower. Now, I screwed up with the Allied artillery. How much of a difference would that make? I don't think much. The combat table is very smooth. I like smooth combat tables with a wide distribution on the die roll. It reminds me of things. I think Musket and Pike had this as well, but it reminds me of things that I've played more recently, like the OCS series, or well, more that than anything else. But where you're not expecting dramatic changes by numerical superiority, it's more the luck of the dice can create dramatic changes. And yeah, I mean, I just don't see the pursuit as being particularly effective, and that's perfectly fine. I think things might have been different had we been looking at a lot of cav attacks on the cav versus infantry combat table. Trying to smack into the rear of Allied units as they withdraw, but they're mainly getting out of the way. And the French cav really wasn't able to get itself into a position to pursue in most cases. It's being blocked by Allied cav, so that's working pretty well. Obviously, I had a lot of struggle with getting my hands around the system, as it were. A lot of that has to do with the rules not being clear, but I think more of it has to do with an unfamiliarity with the basic concepts that this game has as opposed to others. And then also some just disagreements with how it seems like it's meant to handle things. Most notably of all, the rigid wing boundaries. I just don't accept them because the terrain that you fight on has nothing to do with where the wings actually have to be. Again, the battle could be moved, 10 hexes one way or the other, and that would be fine. However, maybe it's necessary for the victory conditions to work as they are. I'm a little disappointed right now in the fact that there's, no casualty track or anything like that. There really wasn't in Musket and Pike either, so I guess that's okay. It's just, it feels to me like it's something that I kind of want to be able to do, is to have an idea of how many, real hard casualties, how badly impacted these armies are going to be. Why? I don't know. Some kind of fantasy thought about ideas of something like a campaign type of game. This isn't meant to support or anything, but I'm kind of like, I like this system. I like what it's trying to do, and I'm kind of intrigued by the idea of trying to fit it into something like a minis campaign or something. I'm having thoughts about, like, not that I have this much time, but in my existence, using something like printed counters as minis. There's no real reason not to do that. And then I could, like, cover many different eras of time. And the only thing that I'd really have to build, I mean, obviously, I'm not good at print and play and whatnot, but, you know, if I could print things that look kind of like these, maybe a little bit clearer to see, that look like minis units, they could have, you know, just the way you would use stands for minis, right? And then all I'd have to do is build terrain and basically be pushing cardboard on very nice terrain. I know that's sort of the opposite of what most minis gamers do. Most minis gamers have kind of crappy terrain when it comes down to it. I see the terrain as incredibly important, and what really draws me in, and, like, to get the right view of what's going on, I want the terrain to be very good, and I want the minis to be at about the right scale for that. And about the right scale isn't too far from just a base with printing on it. Especially if I make the terrain kind of small, you know. But quite often, you know, you have, like, figures that are almost as big as the trees and stuff like that. People using just, like, you know, a drop cloth, maybe with some stuff under it to kind of build up hills and whatnot, or all stuff stacked on top to build up a layer cake type thing. And that's never been what I wanted to do. I wanted to get the terrain done first, make that perfect, and then start investing in minis. And then I was like, oh, I'm never going to do that. You know, I don't have the time and the energy and whatnot to paint armies and whatnot. But this seems like actually a viable solution that if I had thought of it, you know, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago or whatever, when I first sort of became a homeowner type of thing, I might have actually engaged in that, especially as these systems are coming out that I think are doing a better job. So, for example, I have something, a minis system called, I think, Warfare in the Age of Reason, or War in the Age of Reason, that really is designed for the same era as this system is. But it doesn't really address the linear combat aspects. It feels like you're moving around. Yeah, it feels like an ACW game or a Napoleonics or something. You're just moving these units, and you have kind of free command with them. And that's the problem with most games that have covered this period. Well, I don't know about most. About the one series that covered this period was I didn't really feel like it caught that linear combat concept properly. This game is really, really trying to. And then when I look at, yeah, you know, but I could also do the musket and pike era on the same battlefields. You know, even villages and everything, they're going to look the same in that period. Anything really running from probably, you know, medieval through Napoleonic, I can use the same terrain for that with no problem whatsoever. And outside of, like, you know, villages and whatnot, largely the same kind of terrain could be used for everything. And I'm thinking kind of, I saw beautiful, beautiful terrain once in my life. I've seen nice terrain a lot of times, but I've seen really, really beautiful terrain once in my life. And this guy did, I don't know, late medieval, maybe early musket and pike period. I'm trying to remember if there was any gun units in it. I know there was artillery, but let's just call it late medieval. And but, you know, the figures were so fucking huge, as they always are. Anyway, we've just wandered off into a weird little tangent. I'm going to clean this up and get started on Blenheim at some point. I don't know. Probably fairly soon, but whatever. I had a good time with it so far, you know. I really did. I feel like my brain is engaged in this game with this game in terms of trying to make it work better, you know, or more to my taste at least, and in a way that I don't feel like, say, the Great Leaders, Great Battles did at all, right? In the sense that I just felt like that wasn't capturing the spirit of the period very well. I feel like this really, really does a good job with it. Except that, like, there's some things where it just falls apart so badly. And again, maybe it's the missing role, but I think some of the base design decisions are at fault here. All right, sending it up.